Music theory. Composers either seem to love it or hate it, but I think we all really fall somewhere in between, because music theory is just providing you with a set of tools that you can either choose to use or ignore. I mean, some of those tools we kind of all have to use because they're foundational. Other tools, however, when you choose to use them in your musicals to help tell the story, can provide something for the audience that feels akin to magic. Today we're going to look at a few music theory elements that I don't see used often enough in musical theater that can help turn your musical stories from lead into gold. Number 1, voice leading. Assuming that each note in a chord is a voice, such as SATB, then this is a method by which we can make the transitions from one chord to the next as smooth and seamless as possible. Now, voice leading comes with a set of rules. Keep common tones, or notes present in both chords, in the same voice. Move remaining voices by step if possible. Move no single voice more than a third. Change register during chord duration or at the start of a new phrase only. Classic music theory also has some additional rules that prohibit a few things, such as you cannot have parallel movement between multiple voices from one chord to the next. There are also specific parameters regarding the distance between the upper 3 voices, and there's a few other things that we don't necessarily need to take into account here today. And gasp, I know, I'm throwing the rules out the window! I just also want to make a note here and say that in terms of musical theater and using voice leading practically, we are probably going to treat the bass note differently than the voice leading rules of the top 3 voices. And so sometimes bass is involved in the rules and sometimes you can just kind of leave it separate. For our purposes today, we're going to leave it separate. Now, because voice leading actually makes a lot of sense as a piano player, I'm going to play a couple of chords and I'm just going to put them all in root position and not voice lead them. So I'm just going to play standard 1, 4, 5, 1 here. And I am just going to put everything in root position. Here we go. We have 1, 4, 5, 1. And that sounds okay. That sounds very nice. But my hand had to shift all with those individual chords. Now, if I want my hand to not shift, I'm going to use some voice leading. So with my C chord here in root position, in order to get to the 4th and use voice leading, I'm just going to shift my 3rd finger and 5th finger up 1 note each. So now I don't have the F chord, I don't have my 4 chord in root position, it's in 2nd inversion. And this is what makes it a voice lead. Now, in order to get to my 5th chord, I would have to do some parallel movement here, which is okay. As I said, we're gonna ignore some additional rules today. So 1, 4, I could shift my 5 back down and shift my 1 down and move a 3rd down. Come here and then finish off in the same root position I started. So that would sound, adding a bass now. Now, instead of coming back down for my 5 chord, I could instead lift the whole chord up here, and then I've got a common tone already for the next chord, for the next C. But I'm not gonna go back down. Down wouldn't make sense at this point. I'm gonna lift my 5 up, my pinky up to the C. I'm gonna lift the D up to an E. So we are then from here to here. That would sound, it's a lot smoother than with just registration even. We're beginning to see how that works. Now, why would we even do this? What are the uses of this? It creates a smoothness not only in the piano part, but also in the voicings of any instruments you have playing during your composition. If you're using voice leading in your vocal arrangements, it also allows the vocal parts to move pretty smoothly. Even if the chords are getting crunchy, you can use voice leading to make it not feel too bad for the singer. In fact, the less jumpiness that you have within a singular voice part, then the easier it's going to be for a singer to sing something, even if it's like extremely dissonant. If you have these 2 notes shifting to here, it would be a lot harder if the F was jumping to the A and the B flat was jumping to the G and they were crossing voices. Instead, they just each move one note. And then even within that dissonance, it's a lot easier to sing for the singer than trying to do things where we are adding extra jumpiness. It also allows for a wash of easiness on the ear of the audience as the chords move from one to the next through a progression, which means that anything in your composition that is not voice-led on purpose will stand out, and you can use that to your advantage. Technique number 2, common tones, also known as shared chord tones. Whether or not you use voice leading, something that really helps a progression feel good on the ear of an audience and make sense is using these shared common chord tones. Now, two neighboring chords in a progression may share one or two notes the same, or two tones that are the same, or more. The common 4-chord progressions that we all know and love are what they are because of the way that they share chord tones, and they beg the ear to return back to our 1 chord. One of the most standard chord progressions of pretty much all of pop music is 1 minor 6, major 4, major 5. So if we are talking about being in C major here, we've got a C major, an A minor, an F major, and a G major. Now, a few things about that. Going from C major to A minor really only requires 1 note change. We've already got our C and our E. Pop a G on that, and that is suddenly a C major chord. But instead, if we have an A below the C and the E, that's an A minor. So we have 2 shared chord tones. Now, if we are here, and we move to here, in order to get an F major at this point, or our major 4 chord, all we're gonna do is shift our E up to the F. So again, 2 shared chord tones. Now from our F to our G, there is no shared chord tone. We are now shifting every note, which is begging the ear. Now we must return. We've got to go back somewhere safe, somewhere home. We've gone too far, right? Safe movement, risky movement, return. Now another common chord progression using those same exact 4 chords is to start with your 1 going to your 5, then 6, then 4. So by going from 1 to 5, 1 shared chord tone, but then shifting every note to go to your 6. Now our ear's like, oh wait, hold on, we gotta go back home. How are we gonna get back home? We do our 4 into our 1. So that there is a shared chord tone pretty much everywhere, except for again, between the 5 and the 6. So 1 to the 5, to the 6, to the 4, asks to come back home. It's not as big of a drive back to the 1 chord as the first chord progression I played, but still is asking to go home and using the shared chord tones to get there. One more common chord progression with those 4 chords is to actually start with your minor 6 chord. So we are going to start with our 6, and we are going to then go to our 4 immediately with that shared common chord tone of the A and the C there, right? Then to go to the 1. So again, there is shared chord tone there, and then a shared chord tone here. But then we have to make a shift, a total shift of all chord tones in order to get back to the home, right? This is a great chord progression that's often used in the verses of pop songs, because when you land on that G there, or excuse me, that 5 there, it's begging you to go somewhere else, right? And home here doesn't feel like home because it's not the 1 chord. We're going to the 6th chord. But it gives you an option at the end of that chord progression to keep cycling it or to shift to your next thing. And this is what I love about shared chord tones, is that it gives you a sense of tension and release built directly into the chord progression. But there's a lot more uses to it than just the standard chord progressions. In fact, when you feel stuck in all the standard chord progressions, you want to really break out of it. There are a few things here that I would like you to consider as you're playing around and trying to figure out something a little new, a little different. First thing I want you to consider is replace your 3rd of the chord with a different note for suspension. Either instead of here with the 1, 3, 5, suspend with a 2. Now you have a different note you can potentially use for a shared chord tone on your next chord. Or instead of that third, suspend a 4. And again, you have somewhere else you can potentially go with your next chord. It's fun. And then I said before, you can have more than 2 shared chord tones. That's because you can have chords that are 4 notes, or even more than 4 notes. There are so many ways to add a 4th tone to your chords. I mean, you can start with your triad and add a 2, or add a 4, or add a 6, or add a 7, whether that's a minor 7 to make it a dominant chord, or a major 7. Those are all fun, but you don't even have to stick within the octave. You can start adding things like 9s and 11s and 13s, but of course that means then you're adding a lot more notes into it to really make it feel that way, but I mean, there's nothing stopping you. It's infinite. It's not actually infinite. Disclaimer. I also want you to consider breaking your chord progression out of the diatonic scale. You do not just have to use the notes that are inherent in the scale. You can go further. You can use some chromatic movement in here. It's fun. Before we explore that a little bit, I do want to say there is a lot you can do within the diatonic scale. So don't feel like you're totally boxed in. Play around, experiment. There's good stuff to be had in there. That being said, what happens if you alter 1 or 2 notes by a chromatic interval to create your next chord? Ooh. For instance, you could take your C major, move your 3rd down a half step to C minor. Ooh, we like that. Or instead of just moving the 3rd, move the 3rd and the 5th. You get a diminished chord. We love it diminished. In addition to diminished chords, you can just take that 5th and raise it up to an augmented chord. Isn't that fun? We like an augment. Or if you're feeling really spicy, you can take the 3rd down a half step and the 5th up a half step at the same time, and then you get... What? What was that? From a C to an A flat major? Wild. Okay, now those were without going very far and very beautifully voice-led, right? We like that a lot, but okay. So if we're sticking to our diatonic key here, what we would be doing here if we wanted to make an E chord would be to make an E minor chord, right? Because we already have the E and the G from the C chord. Suddenly it's an E minor, great. But you don't have to just go to an E minor. If we are going to make a movement outside of the diatonic scale here, we have that E already, and we're gonna put the B on it, but why not shift the G up a half step and make an E major out of your C major? So C major to E major. But you don't have to stop there. You can do all sorts of things, right? I mean, yes, you could do that. You could also keep the C and not use the B at all, and then you've got an augment instead. Right? And if you keep the C where it was, doesn't that sound familiar? Likewise, instead of just doing the standard E minor, you can go, instead of the B, to the B flat. So then you've got an E diminished chord. Lots of different places you could go, just going to an E bass for your next chord. But what about using the G as the root of the next chord instead? Such a good question, thank you for asking. You can do the same things. You can go from that C chord and you can go to a G minor. Or you can go from that C chord and you can go to a G diminished. That's fun. The G is still common. Or you can go and you can augment that G chord. Lots of different places that you can go. Shared chord tones with chromatic intervals. And this is just so many options available to you just based off of triads. Think of what happens when you add more notes into your chords and then shift. I use these elements in my writing all the time, and I talk about this sort of stuff and give little sneak peeks into what I'm creating inside the Musical Theater Writing Collective. And you can learn more about that community and come join us in our labs, and our cabarets, and our readings, and our live events, and you can learn more about that and join by clicking the link in the description below. Come join us, join us. Hi, this is actually future Michael coming in to say that this discussion was actually longer than I expected it to be, so we broke it into 2 parts. So you're gonna wanna click here for the next part when it's available. Thank you all for being here with me today, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers!